Have you ever thought of your retirement as venturing down the yellow brick road? You remember the yellow brick road and Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and Auntie Em, right? What is he talking about? The yellow brick road? We're skipping down the road and having a grand old time till we get to wherever it is we're supposed to, back to Kansas. Well, to be honest with you, it's not too different than going down the journey towards your own retirement. And before we go there, what I want you to do is subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications bell so you're alerted to when we post new videos. So the yellow brick road, as we're headed down the journey, we're really trying to avoid the lions and tigers and bears, oh my, and the flying things that are going through the air, and making sure that we can avoid all the pitfalls that are in front of us. So retirement, not too unlike the yellow brick road. We're trying to avoid a bunch of landmines on the way to pursuing our ultimate goal, which is really to truly just enjoy the journey, right? We're trying to make sure that we don't pay too much in the way of taxes, or we make sure that our spouse is taken care of, or we don't take on more risk with our portfolio than we should, and many more items. So in this video, I want to share with you some of the overarching landmines that you need to avoid along the journey so that you can truly enjoy the journey through retirement. So let's get started down this road, and I want to share with you some of those questions you need to be asking now before you're already down this journey, so that you can make sure that you don't step on any of these landmines, right? And the first one is, big one, the number one fear in retirement: outliving our money. Now, we know that we're living longer. Actuarial tables tell us that. The markets have been volatile, and the fear itself of outliving money impacts us almost on a day-to-day basis. Because if we're not sure whether or not spending the money today will impact our ability to pursue what we want tomorrow, then how do we know whether or not we are okay along the journey and won't outlive our money? Now, if you wait till the end of this video, there's actually another big concern for many retirees, as I've spoken to them over the last 32 years of my career. And I want to share with you that one, which may be even more important than the fear of running out of money. Now let's discuss the two phases of financial planning. Now that you're about to enter into the next chapter of life, retirement, you need to understand these two stages. The first is the accumulation stage. That's where during your working years, your primary goal was to accumulate as much money as possible so that your nest egg would be big enough to generate the income you'll need when you go to retire. Well, now that you're about to retire, you've entered what we call the distribution stage. And that's where, to be honest with you, the whole conversation about money, whereas before it was probably the number one conversation you had with your financial advisor, if you had one, now it becomes number 4, 5, or 6, because now you're as much interested in, how do I generate the income? Where does it come from? How do I reduce the taxes? And how do I take the least amount of risk necessary to generate the income I'll need? So the conversation about money management in the distribution stage is not as important as it was. It's not the primary focus as it was in the working years. Still important, but you need to understand now that the whole process of moving into the distribution stage is a different thought process and different financial planning techniques and conversations that will help you along the journey towards your retirement. So let's deal with that first big question, which is, will I outlive my money? And let me share with you how it may evidence itself in your day-to-day living. A number of years ago, a client of mine, Barbara, she calls me up and she says, can I do the kitchen cabinets? And if you know me, I don't do kitchen cabinets. But what she was really asking in that question was a series of questions. Number one, if I were to spend, at that point, the $8,000 she was going to spend on the kitchen cabinets, if I spend it today, will it have an impact on my ability to generate income later? And if in the planning process we solve that and it's okay, then the question becomes, where do I get the money from and in the most tax efficient way? And you can substitute kitchen cabinet for, I'm going to go on vacation, I want to buy a second home, want to go take the grandkids somewhere. Because the question really boils down to, if I do spend it today, what's the impact tomorrow? And that's where the planning comes into play along this journey to sort of take the mystery out of the decision-making process. So you're not sitting there wondering whether or not, oh my goodness, if I spend it now, what will happen later? The second big question that I get from my clients who are about to retire or thinking seriously now about retirement is, when can I retire? Or oftentimes, if it's not their business and they're working for somebody else, when can I retire early? Now, if you go to retire early, it could be an irrevocable decision. And if the numbers don't line up, you may have stepped on one of those landmines, because you may set yourself up for a disaster down the road. You may not end up fully getting that great success of those visions and those dreams you had if you hadn't done the planning in advance. So one of the items with regards to can I retire is, can I retire early, right? Another issue with regards to can I retire is, what am I going to do throughout retirement? And I've got a friend of mine, he's sold his practice and he's now retired, but he doesn't have family around, so he's got no kids or grandkids. His business was his baby. He doesn't play golf or tennis. He does do some exercise and he does have his Corvette, but he really doesn't know, now it's about a year or 2 years into retirement, what he's going to do. So a part of when you ask that question about can I retire or can I retire early, it's also got to include a piece of this where you visualize what will retirement look like for you. So the question here that you have to answer is, am I on track to pursue my goals? And again, I get back to the planning and what we call our 7-step process, where you can identify, based on what your goals are, when the optimum time to retire would be. And therein, you can gain confidence that you're on the right track. Or if you find out that you're not, that's fine too. You just figure out what you need to do to make the adjustment so you're back on track or can adjust your goals. So the next big question is, how do I invest my money? So with the volatile markets all around us, some think that when you go to retire, you also retire the management of your money. And that's a big mistake. So let's get back to this accumulation stage versus distribution stage. In the accumulation stage, when you were in your working years, it was okay to take on more risk than you needed to or should have, or whatever you would like to think about it, because you had a lot of time on your hands and a big margin for error that if something happened when you're 30 or 40 or 50, you could overcome that, right? But now when you go into the distribution stage, you don't have the benefit of all that time to make up for some of those errors that we may make. So you need to think about management of the money in a little bit different way. And we call that the personalized investment benchmark. Again, getting back to your working years, the benchmark for the success of your money oftentimes was some index, like the S&P or the Dow or whatever it was. How did you do against some outside index? But when it comes to planning and the 7-step process, the personalized investment benchmark is driven more by how much cash do you need to generate in your retirement now and later, and therefore how much risk do you need to take with your money in order to generate the cash flow that you need. Sometimes we put that question a little bit differently. What is the least amount of risk I need to take in order to generate the income for my retirement and my surviving spouse, right? So it's just a little bit different take on it. And again, as you go down this yellow brick road of retirement, you need to understand this subtle change so that you can feel confident that you've invested properly for whatever your respective goals are. The next question is really key, and it's very interesting. You've been working all of these years getting a paycheck in some form or fashion, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, salaried, commissioned. Now that you're retired, how do you get your income? Where does it come from? Big question. And it's a big stumbling block for those who are wishing to go to retirement when they can't figure it out in terms of how to generate that consistent, predictable paycheck. So what we do within the 7-step process is develop the income plan. Okay? First, you have to identify what your cash flow need is, and then identify what's coming in. Oftentimes it's Social Security, and you can depend on that to be predictable and consistent, right? But how do you get the other income? And therein lies understanding how old you are, whether you are before your required minimum distribution of age 72 or older, and whether or not you have monies in personal and taxable accounts versus retirement accounts, and identifying for the proper time frames which money comes out of which accounts in the most tax efficient manner so that you can pursue your retirement goals. Now, many of you have an estate plan, right? That's when I die, these assets will be distributed according to my rules. The income plan is like the living estate plan. I'm alive. I'm retiring. I'm going down the yellow brick road. How do I get my income? Because cash is king in retirement. The more money we have coming in on a monthly basis, the freer we are feeling. So it's important to make sure you identify how much you need, where it's coming from, and figure out the best way to reduce the tax exposure, another one of those landmines along the yellow brick road. Now that leads me into one of the big questions we get all the time, which is with regards to Social Security. And the question is, how do I maximize the Social Security income for me and my spouse, the household income? Because if you do it the wrong way, and there's 567 different strategies to claim. Did you know that? 567. And United Income did a study just June of 2019 where it indicated that the vast majority of people make their decision to claim Social Security at the wrong time, leaving tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of lifetime household income on the table. So when is the best time? Do I take it at 62? Do I take it at my full retirement age at 66 or 67? Do I wait till I'm 70? If I have a spouse, do we understand the impact of taking my Social Security benefit early on my spouse when I pass? If we don't understand that landmine, that could be a real problem in the future. So we really have to coordinate with all of the assets. When would be the best time to take Social Security? What kind of income is coming in other than Social Security? How much of a portfolio do you have? What do you need? Then go back in, and with one of our 7 calculators, we can determine what the best spot for you and your spouse, if you're married, would be, so that you know and that you're confident that you can maximize the benefits that you're claiming for Social Security. Let me step back for just a minute because I have another couple of questions I want to share with you, but our philosophy really is that you've worked hard to get to this point in life, retirement, and you really should be enjoying the journey. And that's why I want to share with you all the questions that you need to identify and understand before you make that irrevocable decision to enter down this journey of retirement. The next question we get, and it's interesting because I have a lot of conversations with people outside the office talking about retirement, and particularly when they're married. The number one concern for them is to make sure that they're taking care of the surviving spouse. So there's really 3 stages to retirement, if you will. The first is the 2 of you together, enjoying the journey, maximizing the bucket list and going wherever you can, whenever you wish to. And then at some point, one of the 2 of you will be gone. We have to take care of the surviving spouse at that point in time. Have we set up the plans necessary to make sure he or she is taken care of? Have we unburdened them of making sure that they're aware of everything that they have, which is why financial organization is a big part of what we do in the conversations we have with our clients. And the third stage is when that second spouse is gone and making sure the kids or grandkids are taken care of. So all of this has to be taken into account as we go along this journey, because we're not just entering it now. We really have to be thinking about the different time frames and stages down the road. So again, that we don't venture off the yellow brick road, venture onto one of the landmines that could impact the strategies or the way we would wish to take care of our spouse or our family in the future stages. Now, I said to you earlier that I was going to address what many believe is really the number one item in terms of fear of going into this next chapter. And I would want to share with you a story. I had a client a number of years ago. She had worked with an insurance company for somewhere in the vicinity of close to 40 years. She was now in her late 50s, so clearly, if you do the math, it was the only job she ever had. She started in her late teens. And she was now eligible to maximize her pension, therefore she was looking to retire. And we had done the 7-step process with her, and she knew that she was comfortable with all of the numbers and that she could pursue the retirement of her dreams, and she was ready to go. And after we had concluded the whole process with the 7 steps, she comes back in a month later, said that she was going to give notice. And when she came back into the office, she sat down and she was in tears. I said, what's going on? And she said, listen, I understand that these are the numbers, but you have to understand, I'm about to lose or leave my second home. This is a place where I've grown. I've helped grow the business. It's a place that I know that in the morning I have to go to, and I enjoy it, and talking to all my colleagues and being a contributed asset and factor with the organization and being respected for what I do, she said. And this moving into the next chapter of life often is so much more than just the finances, because the workplace is so much more than just getting a paycheck. And when you leave it, the real question becomes, what do you do for the rest of your life? And that's a part of some of the major conversations we have with our clients to make sure that they're understanding, having conversations with their spouses, visualizing how they will move along through this next journey without work, so that they can fill their lives with things that fulfill them, that are rewarding to them. So attending to the 7-step process and all the financial items that we do with our clients is as important as also understanding that there's an emotional side to fulfilling our souls as we go through this journey. And you need to make sure, as you put in all the calculations and you do all the planning, you understand both from a financial and an emotional perspective that you're able to move on and be comfortable knowing that you can go through that journey, feel like you're not going to outlive your money, that you're going to maximize the joy of your retirement, because I do believe, and you do too, you've worked hard for this and you truly want to enjoy the rest of the journey. If you want to learn more and want to move on, just like Dorothy did when she clicked her heels and went back to Kansas, you can view the rest of our playlist and understand much more in depth about our 7-step process.